Peace, family. This is Lions Den with another news and commentary. This article comes from CNN. I'd like to thank former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, that she retweeted this article, and it goes to show whether you work in a big company like this or any small company and you experience racism, and if management didn't do anything about it, then you have yourself a problem. This article is coming from CNN. It says, inside the GM plant where nooses and whites only signs hung. And this incident took place in Toledo, Ohio. It took 14 months for the news to show up. 14 months where Marcus Boyd said he endured racist comments, slights, even threats in a hostile workplace run by General Motors. A workplace where people declared bathrooms were for whites only, where black supervisors were denounced as boy and ignored by their subordinates, where black employees were called monkey or told to go back to Africa. A workplace where black employees were warned a white colleague's daddy was in the Ku Klux Klan, where white workers wore shirts with Nazi symbols underneath their coveralls in Ohio in 2018. Continue on. All those allegations are detailed in a lawsuit filed against GM in which 8 workers say managers at a Toledo powertrain plant did little or nothing to stop racism. For Boyd, it began on his first day. He said he could feel the glare from white team members as if they were saying, who's he to be in charge of them? All other supervisors who were white received training before their jobs, Boyd said. Boyd, an experienced supervisor, albeit in a different industry, was given a clipboard and told to start. But if he wondered if he was making too much of that, the situation crystallized when someone of his juniors ignored him, refused to follow his direction, and called him the N-word, though he could never see exactly who said it. When he reported the insubordination to upper management, he said he was told to deal with it himself, to counsel his workers who used the slur. The message he says he took from his leaders at the plant: be happy you're here, deal with it. I'm going to stop you right there. And I'm going to continue reading this article, but I'm going to stop you right there. So in other words, they knew what was going on. And there's black supervisors, and black supervisors report that their boss was happening, and all they say was deal with it. And see, I mean, and I'd like to thank former, Congresswoman, former state senator Nina Turner for this article, who she retweeted on her Twitter page. But it goes to show, ladies and gentlemen, that it doesn't matter if you work at a GM, work at Target. If you experience racism and management ain't doing nothing about it, then you got yourself a problem. And it shows that if a role were reversed, these black supervisors would have been gone. They would have been out of here. They would have been kicked out. If they using harassment against white employees, they would have been kicked out of here. They would have been fired, terminated. But yet they knew what was going on, and they didn't do a damn thing about it. So again, this is really, really concerning, and this is happening with factories and companies across this country. But I'm gonna continue this article. It says, but it got harder each day to ignore, he told CNN in an interview. A white employee Boyd oversaw told him, back in the day, you would have been buried with a shovel. And I'm going to stop you right there. Can you see what's going on? What these words remind you of? Remember Donald Trump's campaign when he said, well, back in the days, I would like to punch you in your face and blah, 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 making threats. You see the pattern, right? And now it's all over the white CEOs and white top presidents and vice presidents who are, and nothing's going to be done. And this is even more interesting. I'm going to continue to read this and say, in his role as supervisor, Boyd reported that too. The worker was taken into a disciplinary hearing with a union official and business leader where he freely admitted what he had said. Boyd recalled, but then Boyd himself was pulled aside and advised to let the matter go if he wanted to get along at the plant. He said no disciplinary action was taken, Boyd said. Boyd and other workers of color learned there was a coded language to talk about them, according to the lawsuit. White employees kept calling them Dan. They thought some people didn't respect them enough to learn their names, but other colleagues told them it was a slur or acronym for Dom A-N. Continue on. The N-word was a regular part of life at Toledo Powertrain, which that's bullcrap, but I'm keeping on, where components are made for various Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, and Cadillac vehicles, Boyd said. A white woman seen walking with him later found "in lover" written on her pizza box. When Boyd and others reported the abuse, their leadership told them to handle it themselves, he said. Even more violent situations were brewed away. Boyd said he feared for his life when a member of his team, irate about a vacation request, yelled and raised a heavy metal clutch assembly as if he was going to hit him. Boyd said he reported it. This time the offender was punished by losing 1 day's salary. 1 day's salary? You kidding me, right? Boyd repeated and frustrated for what felt like a direct threat to his life. One swing with that clutch could have been deadly, Boyd said. He said he believes there's a simple reason why. You have management people in high places and union officials in high places that work together to protect people that are white, Boyd says. It's like being at a war. It's got to the point where Boyd began asking God to protect him. I used to have to pray literally, Lord, protect me, Boyd said. It was like being at a war, he added. He said he and another black supervisor, Derek Brooks, who was a former Marine, treated their workplace almost like it was a battlefield. When they saw each other or checked in by phone, as they did every day, they would let the other know, I got your six, the term soldiers used to say they have your back. It was the kind of reassurance they felt they were not getting from GM management. And then Brooke found a noose hanging in the area where he worked as the only black employee in that space on his shift. He believed it was aimed to intimidate him. It was a breaking point, the beginning of the end of his career and that of Boyd at GM, not just because of the news had been hung, but because of how GM allegedly reacted. I'm gonna go ahead and stop you right there. And this is the news they found, and they put whites only. I'm gonna stop you right there. See, they need to come. I mean, if I were them, if I were the black supervisors, I would file a lawsuit against GM because this is ridiculous. You basically trying to do your job, and you've been harassed all this time using racial slurs, using nooses all around the plant, some parts of the plant. But again, this isn't the first company that does this. They basically do it to other companies as well, but they're not going to talk about it. So this supervisor has been treated really, really bad at his job for doing his job. And then when he reported to these management, they didn't do a damn thing. They were like, well, you go ahead and take care of yourself. And they already knew this is going on, and they still not doing anything. So him and the others had to watch their backs. The employees been threatened by white employees. In other words, they're doing what they're doing in the 1920s and 30s. Like, well, you can't tell me what to do, N-word. And I mean, you can't tell me you can't run this. So it's getting crazy that GM is doing this. And obviously, like I said, GM isn't the only company that's doing stuff like this. There's other companies that not being reported racial attacks on employees for basically being black. So obviously, you see stuff like this, and if I were them, I would get an attorney, I would go get a lawyer and file a lawsuit, because that is harassment, and they're making threats at your job. So at the workplace, this has had to be addressed, and it had to be addressed immediately. Because if they don't, more stuff will happen, and you're going to have black employees, just like these black supervisors there, is going to have the same treatment like them. And then all the white managers and all the white all the bosses above them is going to ignore it. Like, well, you take care of it. You handle it yourself. That's unacceptable. So this is, I'm going to continue this article right here. It says that first Noose, and then a second, then the third, fourth, and fifth were all reported to GM. According to the lawsuit, which I'm glad they're doing it, Boyd and 8 other black employees have filed against the company for allowing an underlying atmosphere of violent racial hate and bullying. GM rejects the characterization, The company declined to be interviewed, but provided a statement that it held mandatory meetings and closed the plant for the day to have training for every shift. And it continues on, it says, every day, everyone at GM is expected to uphold a set of values that are integral to the fabric of our culture, GM says in the statement. Discrimination and harassment are not acceptable and are in stark contrast to how we expect people to show up to work. It continued, we treat any reported incidents with sensitivity and urgency and are committed to providing an environment that is safe, open, and inclusive. General Motors is taking this matter seriously and addressing it through the appropriate court process. I'm going to stop you right there. And the only reason why they made this statement is because it reported to CNN, it reported to the mainstream media. That's the only reason why they reported this. You know, if it wasn't for CNN, if it wasn't for a mainstream media report this, nobody would never hear about it. And so, you know, you have these black workers in GM try so hard to tell management that I've been harassed. I'm receiving threats, racial threats against a white employee. And yet you can't do anything about it. You telling me, well, you're the supervisor. You deal with it. You handle it. And it's like, we've been trying to tell you guys that I've been harassed. I've been receiving threats, and you can't do a thing about it. This is ridiculous. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue reading this. It says, Boyd, Brooks, and other black workers said in an initial meeting after the Noose focused on violence, but not racial discrimination or intimidation. GM, which declined to answer questions on the record after supplying the statement, placed an article about harassment in the employee magazine. The company replaced all ropes in a plant with yellow chains in an effort to stem the Noose incident. But Boyd, Brooks, and other black workers say that just remove an object and not the hatred. I'm going to show you, this is the plant right here in Toledo, Ohio, at Powertrain right here where the incident took place. So I'm continuing to read this article. It says the union at the plant also disagreed that any practices were discriminatory. I'm going to stop you right there. So what you're saying is that you agree, this is the union now. You agree what management is saying, that this is not racial discrimination or intimidation. So you agree what GM is saying, that this is not happening, but it's proven time and time again that Noose is hanging, that whites only, employees call them the N-word, and yet basically you say that's not discriminatory? All right, moving on. Dennis Earl, who was elected UAW local president in 2017, said, union people protect employees no matter what race and ethnicity. Of Boyd's allegations, he said punishments were equal across the board. If he feels management were being more lenient, I don't see that. This is ridiculous. But continue on. I never seen that. It's pretty colorblind if you ask me. So really, the union is sided with management. And this is why I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that companies always do this. But when you get caught, when you post this incident on the mainstream media front, they either trying to say we will take care of it, we'll do an investigation, but they knew. But this is what I'm saying: the management at GM knew what is going on, and they didn't do a damn thing about it. And now the union is backing them, saying, "Well, I don't see no racism or I don't see no discrimination." Then what the hell are you seeing then? It's just ridiculous. And I'm going to continue saying like this. Earl, who is white, has worked for the plant for 34 years. He told CNN there could be bad actors. Wait, what? They could be... I'm sorry, everybody. Bad actors? They could be bad actors like they can be anywhere. But there was no widespread internal racism. I just... You know what, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, it would have been comical if it wasn't sad. You know what I mean? And when they get caught like this, and when you file lawsuits saying that this is happening at the plant and at the company, and the union who's supposed to back you up no matter what color you are, and now you sided with management saying there's no racism, there's no, I don't see no racial discrimination here. It sounds to me it's corruption in GM, in the GM plant. Because if you get union sided with management, and you're supposed to back up the workers, back up your employees, and yet you sided with management when it comes to discrimination, and there's evidence that it happened, and yet you still going to side with them. And obviously, it shows that it's corruption in GM. Obviously, they basically trying to protect their brand, protect their image. So what they're trying to do, they're trying to say, well, there's no racism. We treat people equal. But yet there's basically evidence that's racism, and they're trying to sweep that under the rug. And it's happening time and time and time again. So continue on. Do I believe people are a little too sensitive these days? Absolutely, he says. What passed 20 years ago doesn't pass today. That's interesting because it did pass today. These black supervisors and black employees said it's happening. The whites only, the nooses, and been threats by fellow white employees. It is happening. But yet you want to side management say it doesn't happen to protect GM's image. You can't say the things you used to say off the cuff. It doesn't excuse it, but it's not racially motivated statement, he added. It's just bad. Get this, it's just bad judgment. How the hell is that bad judgment? When black supervisors, black employees told higher management, this is going on. We see nuisance, half of the plant. We see threats for fellow white employees, calling the N-word, or call one employee N-lover, and all of that, and yet you said there's no racially motivated statements. See, I think GM bought and paid the union to keep quiet of the situation to protect their image because they don't want their image being tarnished. But guess what? Look what's going on now. And then if it wasn't for CNN, if it wasn't for the mainstream media, I've been critical for CNN for stories, but if it wasn't for CNN on this story, we wouldn't hear nothing. We wouldn't heard anything about this. And obviously, they had to say something because guess what? It's out there. You got caught. It's all on the mainstream media, and it seems to me both management and the union are denying all of this and knowing things are happening, and they didn't do a damn thing about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this, and then I'm gonna finish my commentary because this is really an eye opener at a major plant like GM. Having racial attacks in the workplace, and they knew things are going on, and they try to sweep it under the rug. And since they got caught and it's all over the mainstream media, then they going to deny and say we're going to investigate and trying to brush it off. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this. It says Brooks and Broy both wanted to keep their supervisor jobs. They had worked hard to get these jobs, very good jobs with six-figure salaries, far higher than most in Toledo. Brooks used his salary for his 8 children, and Boyd take care of his mother, double amputee. Both felt they had an extra requirement to draw their paychecks beyond the works they did. Be grateful, do not complain. There's unwritten rules with regarding to manufacturing plants. And when it comes to management, Brooks said, when it comes to us being black supervisors, you need to be more appreciative of the job title that you have and go along and do the job that we're asking you. But the nuisance felt like a direct threat. How rough and tough can you be when you got 11 to 12 people who want to put a noose around your neck and hang you till you're dead, Brooks asked. And I'm continuing reading this. As with Boyd's experience, Brooks was told to investigate the incident himself. He said, one person took in a blatant lie. That's not a noose used for hanging. It's a noose get this, guys. And this is what blows my mind. And if y'all just gonna believe this nonsense, that you are really, really naive. And it says that this not a noose used for hanging. It's a noose maintenance operators use to tie off a line. Now, if this is, if you believe this idiocy and this lie they told, that basically you're naive, because no other plants picture this. What kind of plants that put nuisance on side of companies and thinking that, oh, it's used it for off a line, but we already knew what noose is. We as black people in this country know what the noose is and what it stands for, and then they making us think that we're stupid, that we're ignorant, and you gonna tell me that it's using it as maintenance operators used to tie off a line, and we already know what you use the noose for or what that stands for. Anyway, I'm continuing to read this. Brooks shook his head as he recalled the scene. Being in the military, I know plenty about knots. He said, I know there is no reason whatsoever to tie a knot like that other than to use it for hanging a person. Exactly. For Boyd, the noose was a threat filled with deep racist roots, capping the fear he felt each of the previous shifts over 14 months in a workplace where he says racism was often ignored and allowed to thrive. A noose just represented everything that happened to me every day before that. And the two colleagues says they have heard alarming rumors and advised Boyd to get a gun, he said. There were 8 white males that were supposed plotting to sabotage and to follow me out, Boyd said. It got to the point he was terrified. He feared that he'd be on the news after being found dead after an incident at a plant. His mother urged him to quit the job. However much it paid, he left, so did Brooks. And so really, you look at this, obviously, that GM knew what is going on, and they didn't do nothing. Now, when they get caught, when you get busted on mainstream media, that's when they say, well, we want to go ahead and investigate. We don't tolerate discrimination. But yet you did tolerate discrimination because it's happening at your plant, and you didn't do a damn thing about it. And so even with evidence, when you have like hangings, when it comes to have nooses on walls on side of a plant, and we have whites only bathrooms, and black people already understand what that means, and yet you try to ignore that. And basically that tells you what kind of company that they're running. CNN, thanks to CNN here, and with GM actually, they already knew what's going on. They already knew, and they're not doing anything for protect their employees. And it shows the union not protecting their employees because they would have done it a long time ago. And yet they're going to side with management saying there's no discrimination. Wow. And I'm going to continue this. It says, it wasn't just Boyd and Brooks complaining. Another employee made a police report about the nooses and conversation about guns being brought to work. Others filed complaints with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission. The commission, which enforced state laws against discrimination, announced the findings of a 9-month investigation last March. GM did allow a racial hostile environment. So, I'm going to stop you right there. So there's more black employees is coming out, and they filed a police report saying that they've been threatened by white employees, that they're going to do something to them, they're going to kill them, and GM allowing this to happen. So yes, this is a major story, and this has to be investigated for the people that works for GM, especially black people in this country. Y'all really need to rethink of working there. I mean, try to work. I mean, if it happens on this plant, where else is going? Which other plants is going to happen to? And it's not safe. It's a working environment. It's not safe there. And we talking about that we don't tolerate racism or racial discrimination or threats within the workplace. But it happened on your plant, and you still didn't do anything. And this is really an eye-opener, because obviously if it happens at GM plant, it's going to happen at another plant or billion-dollar plants that, you know, have black workers or African-American workers that is going to fear working there because of the threats they have with white employees. And I'm going to continue finishing this. Darlene Sweetney Newbern, the commissioner's director of regional operations, said racist behavior was so prevalent at Toledo Powertrain that she ranked it among the worst cases her team has seen. Incidents continue while the commission was investigating, according to Sweetney Newbern. She rejected GM's defense that it had taken appropriate action. GM did not deny that these things were taking place. They simply said, hey, as soon as we heard of these things, we moved in and we took action. That is not what we found in the investigation, she says. One example came from a former union president testimony. Sweetney Newbern said that at a meeting to address the placing of nooses, a white supervisor bemoaned that too big of a deal was being made. That supervisor went on to say there was never a black person who was lynched that didn't deserve it. That showed part of the cultural problem at the plant, Sweetney Newbern says. This is the individual that's going to go back and explain how is it to the staff, she explained. With no hope of change at the plant, Brooks took another job that paid a lot less. He is working on his PhD. Boyd is back in school with plans to go to a different industry. Both said they can't believe that in this day and age, they experienced the racism they did at work for one of the United States' oldest and most storied companies, still a key part of the economy, at number 10 on the Fortune 500 list. And they hear it's continuing at the plant, which is why they said, as part of their lawsuit, they want the court to dictate procedures and policies to address incidents of harassment as well as compensation for their suffering. There hasn't been anything put in place with regards to trying to deal with the issue, Brooks says. They are not doing anything with regards to really getting into the crux of what the issue is. GM has not identified who was responsible for hanging the nooses, so no one has been fired for those incidents. Let me stop you right there. Yes, they do. GM knew who did this. And the only reason why they're not doing anything because they know that, quote unquote, some may be, quote unquote, white supremacists. You never know. And you see, here's the thing with white supremacy. They're not going to identify, they're not going to rat each other out. That's what they do. They're not ratting each other out, to please, black employees. They're not going to do that. So they're gonna say, well, we don't know who's responsible, because they know who's responsible, and they're not gonna reveal who's responsible because they're gonna feel a backlash with them. Continue on. However, a GM representative says there has been some people dismissed in Toledo during the entire process of extensive anti-discrimination, anti-harassment work, which is continued across its plants with cooperation from the union. So now, basically, they said get this, they want to dismiss. There have been some dismissed in Toledo, but they're gonna get another job at another GM plant. That's the thing. Even though they're dismissing them, the same people that's been dismissed for this, for racial discrimination, is going to get hired at another GM plant. So this doesn't really do anything or satisfy anyone. Lawyers for the men suing GM said there continue to be hateful and racist remarks at the plant to this day, which they plan to include the lawsuit. And see, this is the note, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a threatening message, and this is really, really disturbing. But like I said before, you got people that want to cover themselves because they don't want GM's brand to be tarnished. And that's what is going on right now. And it continues to say, on Wednesday, lawyers showed photos, including one showing a message scrawled on a car on the plant floor that says, quote, "You only need to hang mean bastards, but mean bastards you need to hang." GM said it is aware of the incident and has retained a handwriting expert to analyze the graffiti, noting that the police are involved. They ain't gonna do nothing. Okay, and I'm at the end of this article. First, I'd like to thank, like I said, former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, that retweeted the CNN article. And we're seeing time and time and time again, ladies and gentlemen, incidents like this. It's not, and GM need to be ashamed of themselves because they knew all this time that this incident took place, and they didn't do a thing about it. And what's really scary and disturbing is that the union, who's supposed to protect workers, is not doing anything either. They sided with management. And so obviously GM need to be called out, and I'm not going to tell a lot of black people what to do or where to work, but at the same time, we need to be very, very careful of which companies, and we need to do some research on those companies before we even, apply to it, because you never know what they do in the workplace. They probably be friendly in making more money, good benefits, but then when you work there, you don't really know what your fellow employees is about. Are they racist? Are they white supremacists? Or do they hate? I mean, you never know. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a really big story. I applied Nina Turner. I'm applied CNN for this article because now GM's been called out, and the people from the higher up need to be terminated too. They need to resign or something to happen, because if it continues to happen like this, then blacks is gonna be there's gonna be protests outside of the plants that they're owned by GM if this situation continues. Well, leave a comment, tell me what you think about this article, share this video, subscribe my YouTube channel, subscribe my reaction channel, and subscribe my Black Junction channel for all the news and commentary. With that being said, this is Lions Den signing off. Deuces.